Who built this again?
Who built this?
Yeah. Let's find out. Okay, hello, welcome, bienvenue. It's time for another Armist Inquisition episode 406 on Sunday, the 11th of January 2026. I'm Phil.
I'm Ben.
And I am Matt.
And tonight we're very happy to be joined all the way from somewhere close to Lisbon by Henrique Agostinho. How you doing, Henrique?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Tell us about your YouTube channel.
Oh, it's the One-Eyed Giant, and I tell silly jokes and explore Cyclopean walls.
Yeah, and you
Not in that order, mostly.
fairly new. Has it been going about 2 years, something like that?
Yeah, it's 2 years, which is a long time for and a lot of videos and work, I think. But it's so fun, so I keep on doing it. It went on a breeze.
Yeah. Why did you start?
Yeah, I guess now in retrospect, I think it was a way that my son mostly and the rest of the family created so that I don't bother them with Cyclopean walls. Because I was traveling to Albania to see some walls, and I took my son with me, and at the point in time he said, "You like it so much, why don't you do a YouTube channel?" And I said, "Okay, let me try it." So I did the YouTube channel, and here we are. But the consequence was that now I have other people to talk to about these things, and not just me myself inventing them and annoying everyone around me.
Yeah, so your own success.
Yeah, well, once you start delving into this subject and putting yourself out there on YouTube, you start getting comments and you start getting links to other channels and other videos. And I suppose you're starting to become sort of integrating into this larger community on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's the quintessential rabbit hole. It's endless. When I started, I was just like, okay, I'll do some videos showing the stuff. Then I soon realized that I needed footage that I could not collect myself. And I started to grab footage from other places. Then I started to do some research. Then I would find new things that I had never heard about just because I was looking for other things for the videos. And then I started to collect all the Cyclopean sites that I knew existed, and I started to put it on a map. And then suddenly the map is like 500 locations long, and I keep on doing videos, and I start discovering new things that I not even considered. The most exotic of all these events is that most everybody knows that there are Polygonal walls in Peru. They are the most famous one, and they are the most impressive in terms of skill. Very little people know that they are the same in other locations like Japan, India, and a lot in Southern Europe. But I knew that they were in Southern Europe, namely Italy and Greece. That was it. I was one day traveling to Bolivia to look at Pumapunku. And during that travel, for some crazy reason, YouTube showed me a video about the inauguration of an archaeology site in northern Portugal.
Wow.
And in the back, where the politician was talking, there was a polygonal wall. It was like, what's that? I was not even looking at the video, or there was no sound in it. I had nothing. I was just like, when YouTube plays stuff on repeat?
Yep.
And that was what's happening. I was doing something else. YouTube was showing, then it captured my eye. I was like, okay, what's that? I started to look for it, and then I realized there are polygonal walls or Cyclopean walls in Portugal. As soon as I came back home. I traveled up north in Portugal to visit the place. I did the video, met a lot of people through that video because, well, I don't know. And one of the persons that, extra detail, that wall is rather unimpressive. It's small, the stones are not really very well put together. It's okay. It's Cyclopean. it's important for me because it's in Portugal, but not for nobody else, except that the Portuguese guy contacted me on X and said, there's a better one. What? No, there's a real one, like a big one with big blocks, very well carved together and shaped. It's called Castro Populo. And I said, oh no, I can show you. A guy sends me the videos that he had made visiting the place. I said, what's this? This shouldn't be here in Portugal. And it is there. The whole point of this story being that I'm obsessed with these things for years. I'm doing a YouTube channel for more than a year. I'm going to Bolivia to see these stones, and they are there in my backyard. Then I go to the backyard and I don't go and visit the really nice one. I go to visit another one. I never heard of the big one. She's like, and this is Portugal. I should know better. This comes to the point that why I appreciate the thing so much is because a consequence of me not knowing they exist is that no one else does. And okay, just a couple of weirdos. And so when we travel to these places, they are generally empty. They are free for visitation. There's no tickets, nothing. You just go there and watch it. And you meet the nicest people ever, because there's only the likes of us going to these sites, which is very much pleasant, I'd say. Yeah, that was a nice friend.
It's kind of this proximity effect. I've experienced it in the UK. We get drawn down YouTube rabbit holes looking at Sacsayhuaman or the pyramids, the Sirion, all these exotic locations across the globe. And there's a site, I think it's called Megalithomania.
Megalithomania, yeah.
I don't know if it's not that. I think it's megalithic.co.uk.
Oh yeah, megalithic.co.uk. Yeah, the site, yes.
Where it has all the ancient stone structures in the UK mapped, and you could literally walk down the street and trip over one. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere, yeah.
And we just don't notice them or care to look for them because
I use a lot that map, and every time I go on holidays, so we have this family thing where people say, well, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to go shopping. Oh, I want to go to a fancy restaurant. And what dad wants to do, I open the map and I have like 20 of those sites to visit. So I was in Scotland just like a couple of months ago. And I went on to visit some brochs. I have no idea how to say this. I think it's something similar to it. In there, the towers.
Right. How old are these places in Scotland?
Okay, so I made a video about it. You should look it.
Yeah.
And the towers are said to be communal towers. They are also either called broch or dune, D-U-N. And there are like 900 of them identified, and about, I would say, 20 in good condition. They are made with dry stone, almost polygonal, and they are quite large. So I would say like 20 meters across. They would be significantly tall, 4 stories high. And they are quite beautiful places, and they are located usually on sites that have commanding views. They extend all the way into the islands, which I think it's called Orkney.
Okay.
That has a couple of them, and there's all across the islands and a bit into the lowlands. So there's a couple that are south of Edinburgh. They are very, very, very similar to the towers in Sardinia. So Sardinia has 9,000 of these towers all over, which is huge. There's like one in every direction you look at. And these towers in Sardinia, they are very unique. So the culture of Sardinia is very unique. And what they have special is that they have the staircase built into the wall. So usually what you have is that you have a wall or a building and you put the staircase on the inside of the building attached to the wall, or on the outside attached to the wall also. But inside the wall as a tunnel, an opening, it's something that I only saw in these two sites, in the Nuragies in Sardinia and in the Duns or Brochs in Scotland. And it's curious how they talk. How do these two places relate to one another? There's no explanation. The Brochs in Scotland are said to be younger. So from the 800 BC until our age, more or less. So until the Romans arrive.
Yep.
The Nuragi in Sardinia are fairly older, which is 2000 BC to 1000 BC. Right. Yeah. If we were told, if we were to believe what mainstream academia says about these things, they always have an explanation for it, which is it's a coincidence. Yeah. The world is fully packed with coincidences and people never talked. What I think is likely to happen is that at the end of the Bronze Age, which is around 1200 BC to 1000 BC, there was a lot of turmoil in Europe. Like it's called the Bronze Age collapse for a reason. That turmoil caused a replacement in most of the civilizations in Europe. So most of them disappeared and they were replaced by something else. It's not impossible that being the youngest Nuragi in Sardinia from 1000 BC and the oldest Broch in Scotland from 900, 800 BC, it's not impossible that someone traveled there. You know, they're being expelled from Sardinia and they just travel and they go on with their lives and do similar stuff, but also different. And the culture evolves different in a different direction. I find this hypothesis interesting, and it tells me about the world that is all connected and not living in complete isolation.
Sounds like that could be related to the sea peoples.
Yeah.
Islands in the Mediterranean, mass migration happening during the Bronze Age collapse.
Yeah. My interpretation of the sea peoples is that the sea peoples were the Cyclopean builders, the people building with polygonal walls. These were the sea peoples. And they were expelled from their lands at the end of the Bronze Age, and they were sort of refugees finding their way in the world or just looking for places to be. There are plenty of reasons for me to say that, so I'll try to go through them very fast. Again, I did a video about this. If you want to know in more detail, just please check it. But the idea is the following. At the end of the Bronze Age, we have a lot of places building Cyclopean walls, polygonal walls with odd-shaped stands put together. These people would bury their dead. That was their most common burial practice. This includes the Mycenaean in Greece, the Hittian in Turkey, the Nuragi in Sardinia, the Talayot in the Balearic, and other peoples. Curiously, if we go back fast forward 100 years, we'll enter a period called the Greek Dark Ages, where the vast majority of the populations in all these regions is practicing cremation. Cyclopean walls and all type of stone structures just disappear. And we have a new culture that is very much into weapons, cars, and metal. So these two things do not seem separated. Now, about exactly the sea peoples, the only thing that we have is a text written by a pharaoh. It's an advertising billboard. The guy wrote whatever he felt like. But he says two things. One, that he was hiring the sea peoples to fight off the Libyans as mercenaries. Another, that the sea peoples were really strong and powerful, and he defeated them. Mm-hmm. And there's a yet another piece of information. This one is not in writing, but it's in the drawings. The boats are filled with women. There are women on the boat. So this tells me about refugees, full villages moving on a boat with men and women, that at one point they are accepted as workforce, mercenaries, go and fight somewhere else for me. And then when they come back, they are like pirates, and okay, I don't like you anymore, so you're they will fought over. And oh, great Pharaoh, he defeated some pirates that were already refugees. At the same time, the places where these people arguably lived were being replaced in the way the dead bodies were treated. So just to wrap this up, archaeologists say that if a culture changes the way their cups are made, so they have like these cups in this shape, and then they go to another shape of cup, that's a totally different culture. Yeah. Totally true. It's a revolution. Now we have different cups. But if one day you wake up and decide to burn your grandfather, that's nothing. That's just a normal Tuesday.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, how you treat your dead couldn't be any more emblematic of like a cultural, because it comes into the whole spiritual side of the whole sort of metaphysical philosophy, you know, is incorporated in how we treat our dead, isn't it? So
exactly. It is like dealing with the dead bodies of our relatives is like the most important thing in a culture. Number one, by far, above everything else.
Above even cups.
Shit. So this all changed during the Bronze Age collapse, like because I think it's argued that a lot of the sea peoples maybe migrated from the west, which is kind of what you were getting at with Scotland and Sardinia, the Mediterranean islands, Italy maybe. So that's where there was a change in burial practices, is it? In these Western
the burial
areas.
Practices, if you have, there's this line which I call the parallel 44, which sits on the parallel 44. And it's a line that goes above the Iberian Peninsula, grabs a little bit of the south of France, includes all Italy and all the Balkans, Greece, and Turkey. Okay? North of it, you have the dragons. South of it, you have the Cyclops. This line still exists today. North of it, you have beer. South of it, you have wine.
Wow.
North of it, you have butter. South of it, you have olive oil. And a couple of years ago, there was a financial crisis where south of it, you had debt, and north of it, you had people complaining about debt. But this line exists. And for the whole duration of the Bronze Age, north of this line, the burial practice more common was cremation. South of this line, the burial practice more common was variations of inhumation, like putting the dead bodies into the ground. I call the North Side Dragons, because that was a viewer in the channel that came up with the name, because they were practicing cremation. The South the South people in the line, I call them Cyclops for obvious reasons, because they were building the Cyclopean walls. But there's more for the dragon side, which is the dragon side, they use mortar to build their stone houses. And to do mortar, you need two things, lime and fire. And the south of it, the Cyclops don't use mortar. They build it with dry stone, just the stones piled together. What is the main difference in these areas of Europe, north and south, beyond the butter and the olive oil, etc., is the amount of trees. Trees are scarce in the south. And mortar, cremation, they require a lot of trees that are scarcer in the south. So this is like a natural line that would separate these two approaches into the world. Then there are many theories about what caused it, but my favorite one is something called Hekla 3, which is a volcano explosion in Iceland around 1157, I think, I don't know, 1100 BC. This volcano erupts. There are other things that might be involved with in this area, but one thing is for sure: we have records of really bad agricultural years during this period. So from 100 BC, 1100 BC to 1000 BC, agriculture is not, the weather is not good. There's bad agriculture, there's famine, there's strife, and it's colder. So what do the dragons do? They move south. And they dislodge the Cyclops. They end up Cyclopean construction, and they establish this new culture that is referenced in the Greek history books, the old ones, the classical history books, as the Dorian invasion. Right. And they set up a new practice that is cremation. So since 900 to 700 BC, all the dead bodies in Greece are cremated. Then becomes a new era, and this new era is quite interesting. With cremation becomes only for the heroes. So only the heroes of the wars and political figures, etc., were cremated. Normal people would be back to be buried. Why? Because they are living in Greece. There are not a lot of trees in Greece. Yeah. They cannot continue to burn as much as they are. So they restrict the practice to the elite, to the military elites. Finally, in the Iliad, in the War of Troy, everybody is cremated. But both in what is now supposed to be Troy and in, for sure, what is Mycenae, there's no cremation. They were burying their dead.
So does that suggest that we've got the location of Troy wrong then in Anatolia?
No, I don't think so. I think that Troy didn't exist. So it's wrong wherever you put it. I think that the Iliad is just like Game of Thrones.
Right, got you.
If you look carefully, you see the wall and the White Walkers. They look a lot like Scottish.
The wildlings, yeah, they have red hair, yes. Wild clothes, yeah.
And the wall looks a lot like the Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
So the same thing happens in the Iliad, in the War of Troy. There are similarities with reality, but the dragons and some things give it away, like gods everywhere. People being so dumb that they put the horse inside, not checking what's in it.
Right, yeah. Good point, yeah. That's a fascinating theory about the 44th parallel, which I saw a bit of your video on it earlier, and I haven't heard about it before. And it kind of makes sense. It goes back to that idea of sort of geography shaping culture, doesn't it? And cultures have to do what they need to do to survive. And yeah, I think the consensus on the Bronze Age collapse is pushing more towards climate being the issue, isn't it? Or being the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Exactly.
The catalyst, yeah.
The catalyst.
The first domino, maybe.
Yeah.
We had Eric Klein on, didn't we? Years ago. Do you ever read 1177 BC by Eric Klein?
Yes. Yeah.
He schooled us big time on it back in the day.
That seems like a long time ago,
1157 was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. Not quite when we spoke to Eric, but close.
Going back to the dragon thing, I mean, you can't help but think about all the sort of dragon mythology in the north, in our country, in Wales. Arthur Pendragon and this sort of
George and the Dragon as well.
George and the Dragon, yeah, it's endless. And in heraldry and all sorts. So
yeah, and it's much more a northern thing than a southern thing. But these symbols, they travel very well. You know, if you go to every single country, you have a team playing in red and a team playing in blue, and they are everywhere. And you see, oh, you know, the reds, they have like, it's just that you have to pick a fancy animal, and there are not so many fancy animals. And someone came up with the dragon, and they say, oh gosh, I wish I had one. I'll take it. Although there is a likelihood that this is related to something older. What I'm trying to say is that it's also very easy to come about these things out of the blue very fast.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Let's go back to the actual architecture itself. How do you define Cyclopean construction, and is it the same as polygonal structure?
Yeah. Okay. So the naming is undefined. There is no rules to the name. Okay. So anyone can use what he wants. There's only this one guy, Lugli, an Italian archaeologist from the 1950s, that decided to make a proper study about it and some systematization. He tried, he made a really nice book, but he got him nowhere because it's so chaotic with the styles and the approaches and the differences of executions, and there's no clear separations between anything. The story begins in the 19th century. The story of the names begins in the 19th century when some European wealthy, dandy, good living guys decided they would do the grand tour and travel around. And since they had no Netflix back then, so they decided to dig stuff out of the ground, and that's what they did. This includes the first works being done in archaeology and the first studies of ancient texts, etc., etc., etc. And at a point in time, they come up with some lines in old books saying that the walls in Mycenae were built by the Cyclops. And they go to Mycenae and they see that they are particularly built in this odd way with big blocks at the entrance. And they decided to start to call Cyclopean walls to all walls that are built with big blocks. Cyclopean was also a name used to describe huge tasks. It's a synonym of Titanic, the same thing.
Oh, Titans, going back to Greece, isn't it?
Yeah,
Titans.
yeah, because the Cyclops are Titans.
Yeah.
The first generation of gods are the Titans, and those include the Cyclops. So Titanic in the sense of really big and difficult, also is synonymous with Cyclopean in the sense of big and difficult. Then we have the walls in the Mycenae being built by the Cyclops. A bit south, also in Greece, there's Tiryns. Tiryns was also said by the original Greek sources to have been built by the same Cyclops as the Mycenaean, and it's contemporaneous. So it becomes a thing. Then these same people start going around Europe and doing what I do now, which is, look, there's a Cyclopean wall, and seeing the similarities. And for a long time, Cyclopean became synonymous with big boulders clamped together in odd shapes, not really cut. Come in the 20th century, and academia is conquered or occupied or possessed by some bureaucrats that decide that everything needs to be within some formalism. So they dismiss the Cyclopean name as being totally unreliable, and came up with a new name, Polygonal.
Right.
They even go to the extent of saying that it's opus polygonale in Latin, and attributed to Vitruvius, even though Vitruvius never wrote about it. But they said, no, now it's polygonal, and polygonal is so important that even Vitruvius talked about it, which he didn't. Polygonal then becomes all the walls that are made with odd shapes, not squared.
Right.
The Romans would not build this way. They only built with square blocks. They were very, very practical people, the Romans, and building in square blocks is a waste of time, and it's incredibly complicated and expensive, and there's no immediate benefit in doing it that way. There's a really big benefit in over 1,000 years, because it's super strong and resistant. But in the short term, there's no benefit. And the Romans were in a rush, so they would use the square blocks. So whatever. And that's it. So the name became Polygonal, which I don't like. I prefer Cyclopean. And I use Cyclopean, and I prefer Cyclopean for just one stupid reason, which is because I like the joke of the one-eyed giant. I think my inner 12-year-old laughs at it every time when I think about it.
Yeah, why not?
I suppose the most famous, when you mention Cyclopean walls to people like us who are interested in the subject, the first examples that come to mind are in Peru, Cuzco, which seem to be like the most sort of breathtaking examples. And when you start looking more into this and you find out that they're all over Europe, Japan, all over the world, it raises some important questions, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's shocking to think that we don't know how the Peruvian walls were made. We just don't know. It's beyond our imagination. The only thing we know is that it is extremely hard to do it. It doesn't matter if we say it's geopolymer or lasers, anti-gravity lasers mounted on dinosaurs, or as ridiculous as cavemen polishing it away. Anything goes. It's just impossible. Then we have basically the same thing in Turkey. And it becomes unexplainable. Why is it in Turkey? What is the relation? Why a technique? Because one can say, I don't know how the Peruvians did it, but they did it. Okay, it's there. They come up with a solution. They made it happen. It was their thing. But the same thing happened in Turkey. Worse, arguably happened 2,000 years before, 3,000 years beforehand. Worse even, That wall in particular in Turkey is the oldest in Europe. All the other polygonal walls are simpler and younger. This is the only technique, whatever, that goes into a steep decline, starts in perfection and goes into steep decline and disappears.
Yeah, that's making me think of the pyramids as well, isn't it? Quite famously, you know,
exactly.
The earlier ones are thought to be the best in terms of how they look and how they've been built, and then they gradually get worse over time, which is just a weird. When we live in it, well, we think we live in a society where things gradually get better over time. It seems that, you know, the absolute opposite was happening with this particular technology or culture, I guess. I don't know which is the best way of describing it.
It's a paradox of megalithic construction. It goes south very fast. It starts very well and then it declines. So you take like Baalbek, which is where they have the biggest blocks ever moved. They are the oldest. And everything else that was built afterwards is way less impressive.
Is the mainstream still clinging to the Romans building the Trilithon?
Yeah.
It's like you just described how practical they are and how it's all about the numbers and get it done quick. Why would you make a wall with 800-ton blocks rather than 10 80-ton blocks?
Just the other day, I saw this lady that has a job, which is being paid for it, the professor, whatever, and she was explaining that the reason they carry these big blocks is because to save on the trip. I'm not joking. This was a person with responsibility saying that because of why instead of carrying so many rocks, you should just carry one and done.
Wow. That's someone who's never built anything in their life talking.
Yes.
Or moved anything heavy.
Yeah.
Do you think we could move the Trilithon blocks today?
I'm not sure. I'm told we could with the cranes that exist in ports.
In ports,
but these, those are really, really big machines that they work in a portico, and they go. They're mostly static, or at most they travel on rails very slowly. That could be done, but come on. The big part of the Trilithon is that, okay, let's say they moved it. Where are the rails? Where are the extra hard surface? I have no idea how they did it.
What if it's a facade?
There's one bigger stone that was transported fairly recently in St. Petersburg, Russia. Is the Thunderstone.
Yeah.
It's the basis of the statue. It's bigger than the Trilithon. It's like at 900. And it was moved using ice, which they have plenty of it, and frozen surfaces, and stainless steel spheres, rollers.
Bearings,
Bearings, exactly. They will put the bearings in the front, take it on the back, and carry it over the ice, and they could manage. At the same time, the Colossi of Memnon in Egypt, the two big statues, they are 700 tons each. So they were moved. How? I have no idea, but they were moved.
With ice.
It's wild.
In Egypt. The famous Egyptian ice and copper bearings, presumably.
Yeah, maybe stone. Maybe stone bearings. Stone spheres, maybe.
Atlas spheres.
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
It's just...
It defies explanation, doesn't it?
Yes. So we can explain 99.9% of the blocks moved. So even the big ones, the ones that we find in the dolmens, in Stonehenge, in everywhere, okay, they weigh around 100, 200 tons. It's not easy, but it's feasible, okay? There are videos of tribesmen pulling them stuff that big and they can do it. It's possible. This includes like the big head statues of the Easter Island. There are round about that size, a bit below 100 tons, and includes the obelisks in Rome. The Romans did carry the obelisks from Egypt into Rome, and being Romans, they wrote about it. They told the whole story. They tell everybody, which is like a telltale sign of they did not do the Trilithon, because they bragged like hell whenever they did anything.
Good point, yeah.
And they did not brag about the Trilithon. Okay. Another small detail about the Baalbek. The columns and the top in the Temple of Bacchus, which are the pink granite columns, yep. They're really nice, super tall, and they weigh about 60 tons each. They came from Aswan in the south of Egypt, which is really far away, but that's where they came from. And they were built by the Romans. How do we know that? Because the Romans made sure we knew about it. They left records and paperwork and accounting slips, everything, the whole deal. It's clear, documented, that they went to Aswan to pick up the columns and carried it over to Heliopolis or Baalbek and put them on the temple there.
Yeah.
The reason the Romans did that, I think, is because they did not do the Trilithon. So they felt, okay, I need to do something impressive.
Yeah, the hypothesis being that the Romans found the site, or the site was well known, and the sort of the base, the retaining wall, and the footprint was there, and they just planted the Temple of Jupiter on top of it.
Yeah, which is what makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the Romans were building the whole thing from scratch, they would brag about it.
Who could have built it then, Henrique?
The same people that did Jerusalem. You know, in the tunnel, there's this big block in the tunnel. It's so similar to the Trilithon.
This is on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Yeah, exactly. So the Temple Mount and Baalbek, they are very similar. And it's not an uncommon thing at Cyclopean times, which is an acropolis, elevated plain, to land God knows what. I have no idea what they were landing there. But the vast majority of the most important sites in the world are built in that way, which is there's a hill, and the hill is transformed into a solid, flat top. In Europe, those places were built in polygonal fashion by the Cyclops, including Athens. So if you go to Athens today, you see the world famous Acropolis, and it's built with the regular stones and mortar. But that's a new work. That work was redone over time many times. The first one, the original one, was what they call the Pelasgian wall, was a Cyclopean wall built on top of that hill. Very similar work as done on the other hill next to it, which is the Pnyx hill, with big blocks of Cyclopean nature. The interesting bit here is that the original builders of Athens did this and put nothing on top. Most of the Cyclopean works are called castles, but they have a lot of problems as castles, which is they have no water, they aren't defending anything, so they're easily bypassed by anyone that wants to be there, just like a hill in the middle of a plain that can be easily surrounded and overcome. They don't have and they don't have anything built on top of it. Nothing. They were just built for nothing, and then eventually the Romans came in and built a temple, and sometime later, in most of them, a church was built on top. Original buildings from the early Bronze Age, there's nothing. They were just doing the pedestals.
It makes you wonder if there was a connection to astronomy, early astronomy with these places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was for sure. So if the most impressive one is Alatri in Italy, which is quite close to Rome. It's like 70 kilometers away from Rome. It's the most beautiful place in Italy, I think. Italy is a very beautiful site, so it's difficult to say. They have plenty of it, but Alatri is amazing, and it has a lot of walls. It has an acropolis with a few doors, and those doors, they all point out to really special spots in the sky, and light comes in the
solstice,
exact solstice, etc. On the days it shoots, and it's a clock. Mm-hmm. I'm now working on the theory, which is these pedestals were used to put the dead bodies for a while in some sort of ritual.
Okay.
Really gross stuff. The Cyclopean builders tend to leave us nothing of their occupation. There are plenty of cities that were built in Cyclopean fashion. They said they were built when the Romans were around, but the Romans never occupied, never lived in them, never wrote about it, nothing. They were just deserted. But these places are not, they don't have any type of remains. They're just like structures with nothing on top. The ones that have something on top are from the Iron Age, meaning 700, 600, 500 BC. Right. So we're being told that they are mostly from the 5th century BC. That's when the Romans are already nearby, and we start to have information about these places. And because the Romans would write everything down, and there were people living in some of these sites. One can say, well, they are older, but if they are older, what happened to the dead bodies?
Henrique, so the Cyclopeans, these were the ones who buried their dead, right?
Yeah, they buried their dead, but not immediately.
Did they bury their dead in sort of mass graves? Has it been found?
Yeah, secondary burial.
So if you have a decaying body or a group of bodies, I think you might be right. You get them up high out of the way, you wait for that decay to occur, and then it's easier to essentially send someone up to sweep the bones up and put them in a big pit.
Exactly. So what you have is that these pedestals, they have nothing on top, and they are atop a hill, and they are in a isolation. Mm-hmm. Like towers in silence of the Zoroastrian church in Iran and now in India. So they would build these pedestals and have nothing on them. They were very high up. These were obviously important structures for them because they took a lot of trouble building them. And it's weird that they would build these incredible structures and not use it for anything. Not a castle, not a palace, nothing. And where are the dead bodies from the Bronze Age? In Italy, in the region of Lazio, where most of these cities are, they are found in caves. So they would dump the bones in caves. In Croatia, they are collected in mass graves. In Sardinia, the tombs of giants are packed with bones, dismembered bones, some of them showing cut marks. That can happen in many ways, but they have cut marks. In the Balearic Islands, there's a thing called the navetas, which are like these little houses made of stone, polygonal, obviously. Inside, there were plenty of dismembered bones. So for sure, a big part of the cultures in the Bronze Age in south of Europe were using secondary burial. The bodies would decompose somewhere, somehow, and they were moved into these collective graves as the bones only. If it was done in the open air with animals like vultures and stuff, maybe it makes sense. But there's no practical evidence for it.
And they buried them in sort of ossuaries then in caves and stone structures. I'm wondering if there was a link to how important the land was to these people and not having bodies, decaying and diseased, possibly contaminating the same kind of place where they grow their crops and
it makes a lot. I've never thought of that. It makes a huge amount of sense because again we're talking about the Cyclopean the Cyclopean South where fertile soil is very scarce, which means they would not be doing what we do today where our cities are built on the best land. They will not do that.
No. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting theory, that, isn't it? You think about all these ancient sites. Well, you mentioned the Temple Mount. That might have been its original, utility as an open air.
Yeah, decomposition area.
Yeah. And it's just been sort of taken over and built up upon and repurposed over the millennia.
Yeah. At the end of the Bronze Age, before being replaced by the dragons, most of these sites move away from collective graves and start to implement individual elite graves.
Right.
Okay, so this happens in the islands of Sardinia and the Balearic Islands. It happens in Greece with the Mycenaean. So the very, very, very early Mycenaean graves in the Tolos are collective. And then as time goes by, they start to create big structures for big guys. I think there's not an invasion as we see in the end of the Bronze Age by the dragons. I think there's an evolution or a change or an adaptation with new people and new ideas coming in, more stratified, that they move on from building small structures into more monumental works. And it emerges as the palatial culture. And we move on to the end of the Bronze Age with these imperialistic forces in the Mediterranean, which
it's the rise of society, isn't it? And maybe hierarchy.
Hierarchy is the word.
And
Society's too broad.
It's like saying, well, I don't want to be buried with this idiot here, this scum. I want my own, I'm better than him. I'm better than my fellow man.
It requires wealth to start with. So you have to have a hierarchy where you have kings, a rich priesthood, the tax collectors, and you can afford your own burial rather than being stuck on the top of the hill.
Just throw me
there's
this.
There's a sign that talks about occupation by different cultures, which is what's happening in Turkey. In Turkey, we have the Hittite Empire. The Hittites were living in the cities where the most incredible stonework polygonal is made, the ones that are of the Peruvian style and status. They are built in the Hittite Empire. The Hittite means rulers of Hatti. Hatti is the land, and the people of the land are the Hattians. The Hattians, though this is written by the Hittite themselves, the Hittite, they had writing, they were an Indo-European language, and they were saying, we rule over these guys, which are the Hattians. And since we rule over these guys, we are the rulers of these guys. And which is quite uncommon for an incoming force to call themselves as the name of the guys they occupied. But it shows a bit how they realized that the people they were conquering and ruling were skilled and advanced. They respected the technology, let's say, or at least that's my interpretation. The curious thing about the Hittite and the way it fits all together is that the Hittite talked an Indo-European language. All the languages we talk today are Indo-European. So all the European languages are Indo-European. They come from a common root. That common root is originated somewhere in Asia. And it's very disputed where, but it's somewhere in Asia. It comes over. Yeah, it comes over, and this includes the English, the Portuguese, the Slav, the Hindi, the Celtic languages. All of these are Indo-European, of the same family and root. All they have a lot of things in common, like the word for water and the word for father, that they are very clear as being similar across. They all use the same structure of verb, noun, verb, adjective, or something like that. Because of the conquests of the discoveries and conquests of the Americas, these languages became like overwhelmingly popular and are taught in Africa and the Americas and the whole of Russia. So basically only China nowadays doesn't speak one of these languages. China and the Basque.
Yeah.
The Basque country, it's a really weird place because they never been independent, but they are fiercely independentists. They've always been under someone else's rule, but they've always been ungovernable. It's a curious mix. They keep their own language, which is unrelated to anything else, any other Indo-European language. It's a really strange case. And the closest thing that one can relate to, which is a stretch, the closest thing one can relate to the Basque language is the Georgian, the language that is spoken in Georgia, which is the Kartvelian. They use the same grammar structure, which is, I don't know, verb, whatever. These two, they use the same grammar structure, and they have other similarities with like the name of the rivers and stuff like that, that usually is very, very old. These two are isolated. They are nothing. They have no relatives, nothing. They have nothing in common. No one knows about any other relative, except that the language the Hattian spoke was, that the Hittite conquered, was the same language from the family of the Georgian. Okay, now let's wrap this up because it gets really complicated. On the Spanish side, you have the Basque, and the closest relative is the Ibero, also known Indo-European. The Ibero, the closest relative is the Nuragi in Sardinia. What all these odd places have in common? Cyclopean walls. So the Hattian were building Cyclopean walls and they had this crazy language, which the closest relative was the Georgian that has Cyclopean walls, built in the Bronze Age, which the closest relative are the Basques that have Cyclopean walls, that the closest relative are the Iberos that have close Cyclopean walls, and the closest relative is the Nuragic in Sardinia that have Cyclopean walls.
Wow.
So all these things like kind of grouping together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I understand it, the Hittites never made it after the Bronze Age collapse. You know, it was one of the, well, most places didn't. It was only really Egypt who somewhat survived, and then you come up with Neo-Babylonians and Neo-Hittites and Neo-Assyrians and Greeks rather than Macedonians.
And
wow.
Nothing is written in the Bronze Age. The only thing that is written are the Hittite language, the Mycenae. They write a little bit, but only in the palaces. There's nothing written to the populace. It's only accounting inside the palaces, in the palaces with linear B.
Yeah.
Linear A is used only in by the Minoans. And there are writings on other places like the Vinca culture that may have writing. The Egyptians, they have writing for a long, long time before. And not the Neo, but the old Assyrians and Sumerians, they have writing. What the people that have writing don't have is Cyclopean walls.
Wow.
No one ever wrote about building Cyclopean walls. The Romans, they wrote about everything. They say they built some, although they didn't, and they never wrote about it. So they would write about everything except those walls.
It would explain why, you know, Cyclopean cultures would be outperformed by competing cultures who have writing, because it's a bit of a it's a massive advantage, isn't it?
I have a crazy theory about it. Just this crazy theory. Okay, but let me just finish the writing. The other culture that has no writing and has Cyclopean walls are the Peruvians or the Inca. They have no writing. All we maybe know about the Inca was written by two guys 50 years after the conquest. One was a Spanish monk and the other was a native, half Spanish politician. And maybe they were not being very truthful when they tell their stories. I don't know. I have my reasons to suspect. But the fact is, the walls are there and the writing is not on the wall. The same goes for all the other Cyclopean walls across Europe. No writing, even though writing exists abundantly in the continent, at least in Egypt, way before. They never write about it in the Cyclopean world. And one day it got me to think about something. And I was reading a book called The Bicameral Mind. Now, the book has a huge title, but the bicameral mind is the important thing. And it's this theory that says that the polytheistic gods are the way the people, before learning how to read and write, would interpret the voices in our heads.
Wow.
So nowadays, the voices in our head, we understand it's our voice. Yeah, when we listen to some stuff, it's our voice. But we can almost hear our mother screaming when we do something wrong, right? That ability to listen to our mother talking when she's not around still exists in us. It's somehow sort of a convention that we decided that that voice, it's ours and it's not our mother. It could be our mother. If we say it's our, and why do we know it's our mother? Because it's built out of our memories of her. And in a way, it's like a virtual representation of our mother that is talking in our heads. If we take this a little bit longer to the gods, you see that the god of lust could be our own lust, could be that little voice that talks in our head when we're very horny. The god of war could be that little voice that talks in our head when we are really angry. And that's why the polytheistic gods have these strong, emotional, flawed characters. They're vindictive, they're petty. That's the type of voices we have in our head. We all have their voices. Together with our sacred mother's voice, we have these really divine but really dirty voices also. And the bicameral mind is a theory that somewhere along the line, the overall interpretation of the meaning of those voices changed. That we still have them, but we don't access to them so often, and we dismiss them as just being our memories. But it could be that in an ancient time, people would search for those voices as a source of inspiration and decision-making. Like, for instance, going to talk to the gods to get advice before fighting a battle, going to the oracle. And what did the oracle do? They would drug themselves and hear voices.
Yeah. Wow.
And this is still practiced in lots of religions, like the voodoo religion in Haiti or the candomblé in Brazil, where they get themselves drunk, they listen to voices, and they say they are talking to the spirits. And this is like the whole, so I made the book in a short summary of the whole theory of the book. And the last bit of the book says, as soon as a person starts to read and write, he doesn't really have as well the ability to distantiate himself from his thoughts, because the thoughts are there for him to see clear, black and white. Before writing, you don't have this clear ability to frozen an idea, and the best way to remember or to capture an idea is to give them a character and create a persona.
Yeah.
And also to make them think in songs and verses, like the Iliad, that was all verse all across before, and not written, was memorized. The whole thing, 20 years of war, memorized. What if, now is my crazy theory. This was not my crazy theory, this is other guy's crazy theory.
Yeah.
My crazy theory is, what if the people that were building these crazy walls were even in a previous state of consciousness that allowed them to do this type of incredible work in a very, very repetitive, mind-numbing way? That if once a person evolves past that, by engaging in some other structural symbology or whatever, he starts to lose the ability to become in the zone, in trance.
Right.
Okay. So my crazy theory is that the Cyclopean works and all these megalithic, incredible constructions were built by a population in trance, the same way athletes are in trance when they are in a zone. So the tennis player is not thinking about the ball. He doesn't even see the ball. That thing doesn't really reaches his conscious mind. It's just like a flow that he's in on. And he's in a trance, technically. And what if the people, and to be in that trance, the tennis player needs to practice for hundreds and thousands of hours to achieve that state. What if the Cyclopeans could really reach that state very easily or very commonly and would apply that to really mind-boggling stonework? Like,
Yeah. And not necessarily the whole culture. I mean, this could have been like a dedicated, not team, but, you know, a subsection of the culture.
Sect.
Yeah.
I think it was the whole culture for the numbers, because when Alatri was first documented, there was about 1,000 to 5,000 people living in it. So the most accurate estimate would be 3,000 people. There are at least 50,000 really big blocks carved and shaped and put into place. So this means that each inhabitant, sick, ill, young, new, babies, women, had to cut and shape about 20 stones, multi-ton stones. It's an absurd amount of work. The same goes for the Peruvian works in Cusco. If you do the math of the amount of people they have and the work that they were done, it's mind-boggling. And then you see that it was not easy. They were not chopping the stone, they were polishing it. They needed a lot of time. So what I think is that all these things were built during a long period of time, hundreds of years, and everybody was participating in it.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know how you support that building workforce, though. How would you support
they
like
were
a
not
population
only, they were not doing that only.
Right.
It was like they had two modes.
Right.
The carving mode and the farming mode. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. I like it.
That's also because they don't. That's why also they don't have cups.
Don't need them.
No. Why would you need a cup?
Maybe wine glasses.
Yeah.
They need the wine.
Yeah.
Do with the wine glass.
Yeah.
They did have wine.
Well, Henrique, this has been absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Lots of new things, lots of new ideas that we've not heard. Well, I've not heard before.
No, fresh.
No, yeah. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We've gone well over an hour already. We should let you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
it was fast.
it did, yeah.
It feels like it just started.
Yeah, well, you can always come back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're more than welcome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Will do.
definitely. The links are in the show notes, folks. You should follow Henrique's channel if you want more detail than what we can get through in a brief hour here.
Yeah, One-Eyed
Yes.
Giant on YouTube.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the link in the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
So scroll
Yeah.
down and it'll be there. And you're on X as well, aren't you?
Yeah. Also One-Eyed Giant. And it should be easy to find, sorry.
You might not be able to find it in the UK soon.
Oh, no.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
Are we banning that?
There's a great cleanse.
They're talking
occurring.
about banning X in the UK, yeah.
Right. Okay. I didn't realize.
Oh, I thought it was because it was a dirty joke.
No.
It was offensive somehow.
Yeah, just got it.
No.
Well, this has been fab. Thanks again, Henrique. Thanks for your time. And
Yeah.
we shall let you go. Enjoy what's left of your Sunday.
Yes.
Follow the
My
links
pleasure.
in the show notes, yeah. Cheers. And us three will come back in 10 minutes to do some news. All right.
Yep. Thanks, Enrique. See you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.